Mr. Smith, Donald Trump thought these officials would break the law out of party loyalty. And when those officials, his own political allies, told him the truth, he dismissed them and continued to spread the lies anyway.
One recorded phone call, one demand for just enough votes to flip a state, and a trail of Republican officials who told Donald Trump the truth, only to be ignored. In this moment, Representative McBath brings forward some of the clearest evidence of how far Trump went to reverse the 2020 election, forcing viewers to hear his own words and see how Georgia officials pushed back against false claims and political pressure.
In fact, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against Georgia in 2023 challenging recently passed voter suppression legislation. That lawsuit was later withdrawn by Donald Trump's Attorney General, Pam Bondi. But this is not the first time that Donald Trump has encouraged voter suppression. In the 2020 presidential election, which many have accepted that he lost, he pressured his party members to overturn a legal election. Thankfully, several public servants upheld our constitutional process and respected the voice of the people. Your investigation revealed how far he is willing to go. In your final report, you wrote that, and I'm quoting, "The through line of all Mr. Trump's criminal efforts was deceit, knowingly false claims of fraud." Mr. Smith, what did your investigation reveal about President Trump's interactions with Georgia's officials regarding his frauds claims?
As I sit here now, I can recall two specific officials. The first was the Secretary of State, who was a fellow Republican. My understanding, he voted for and supported Donald Trump in the election, but told Donald Trump in a conversation that was recorded in no uncertain terms the results of the election and debunked many of the fraud claims that Donald Trump had to him in real time. In addition to that, I recall that Donald Trump also spoke firsthand with the Attorney General of your state, also a Republican, who informed Donald Trump that he had supported him and voted for him twice in the past. He also told Donald Trump he did not see outcome determinative fraud in that state.
I have an audio from a phone call between Trump and the Georgia Secretary of State regarding the 2020 election. Could you please play the audio?
Are angry. The people of the country are angry, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
Mr. Smith, you explained in your deposition that Georgia Secretary of State was one of the witnesses who disabused President Trump's false claims. How did Georgia Secretary of State push back against Trump's efforts?
I think my recollection is in this same call, President Trump repeatedly raised fraud claims, and the Secretary of State repeatedly explained not only that they weren't true, but I believe my recollection is in several instances explained why they weren't true. And I believe that call ended, my recollection is that it ended with President Trump in essence threatening the Secretary of State that he might be a target for criminal prosecution if he didn't do what President Trump wanted him to do.
So see, that raises a very critical point. President Trump didn't just spread lies about the election. In your words, and I'm quoting, he preyed on, end quote, Republican officials in Georgia and other states who believed would help him. Mr. Smith, Donald Trump thought these officials would break the law out of party loyalty. And when those officials, his own political allies, told him the truth, he dismissed them and continued to spread the lies anyway. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Smith, if your case had gone to trial, would the evidence from Georgia have helped prove that President Trump knowingly engaged in a criminal scheme to overturn the 2020 election?
Yes. After an investigation following the facts and the law, we believed we had proof beyond a reasonable doubt to prove those charges.
And in your deposition, you mentioned a fake elector witness in Georgia who you thought would have been a very powerful witness at trial. Can you tell us a little bit more about that in a very limited amount of time?
Sure. It was a witness who had been made to understand that his electoral vote, his alternative electoral vote, would only be used if they won in court, if they won in litigation. That didn't happen, and President Trump and his co-conspirators tried to use those alternative fake elector certificates to get Mike Pence.
Mr. Chairman, regular order.
Himself.
This segment focuses on Georgia as a clear example of how Donald Trump's effort to overturn the 2020 election moved from public messaging into direct pressure on state officials. Representative McBath connects voter suppression history, election denial, and Trump's post-election conduct to show a consistent pattern. The investigation did not uncover confusion or misunderstanding. It revealed a situation where Trump was repeatedly told the truth by his own party's officials and continued to push false claims anyway. Jack Smith's testimony makes it clear that two of the most important witnesses in Georgia were Republicans who supported Trump and voted for him. The Secretary of State and the state's Attorney General both told Trump directly that they had reviewed the claims and did not see evidence of fraud that could change the outcome. These were not political opponents. These were allies who had every incentive to help Trump if the facts supported him. Their refusal carried more weight precisely because they were part of his own party. The recorded phone call played during the hearing brings this issue out of abstraction and into plain language. Trump's demand to find 11,780 votes is not framed as a legal challenge or a request for a review. It is a direct statement about changing the outcome by locating just enough votes to flip Georgia. The Secretary of State's response, telling Trump that his data was wrong, shows that Trump was not operating in a vacuum. He was being corrected in real time and continued anyway. Smith's description of how the call ended is especially serious. According to his recollection, Trump did not simply disagree. He moved into territory that looked like intimidation, suggesting that the Secretary of State could face criminal consequences if he did not comply. That detail shifts the moment from political pressure into something that resembles coercion. It adds another layer to the question of intent and state of mind. McBath also points to how Trump selected which officials to pressure. Smith confirms that Trump targeted Republican officials because he believed party loyalty would override legal obligations. When those officials refused to break the law, Trump did not accept their explanations. He dismissed them and continued to promote claims he had been told were false. That pattern matters because it speaks to knowledge and intent, not simple disagreement. The fake elector scheme in Georgia adds another critical dimension. Smith explains that at least one witness believed their alternate electoral vote would only be used if court challenges succeeded. When those challenges failed, Trump and his co-conspirators still tried to use those certificates. That detail suggests a shift from contingency planning into active misuse of documents after legal avenues were closed. From a legal standpoint, Smith's statement that prosecutors believed they could prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt is significant. It shows how central Georgia was to the overall theory of the case. The combination of recorded calls, direct testimony from Republican officials, and fake elector evidence created a body of proof that went beyond public speeches or social media posts. For the public, this segment makes clear that the story of Georgia is not about partisan spin. It is about documented conversations, recorded audio, and sworn testimony from people inside Trump's own political circle. The officials who rejected Trump's claims were not acting against him as political enemies. They were acting as state officers following the law. This moment also reinforces a broader theme of the investigation. Deceit was not accidental. It continued after Trump was told repeatedly that his claims were wrong. The persistence of those claims, combined with pressure tactics and alternative elector efforts, paints a picture of a coordinated effort to change the outcome after lawful challenges had failed. McBath's questioning keeps the focus on accountability rather than personality. By tying Georgia's evidence to Trump's overall strategy, she shows how one state fits into a national effort to overturn the election. The hearing does not rely on interpretation alone. It relies on Trump's own words, the actions of his allies, and the testimony of officials who refused to go along. For viewers, this segment is one of the clearest windows into how the 2020 election fight moved behind closed doors. It shows what happened when public claims met private conversations, and how those conversations became part of a criminal investigation. Georgia stands as a case study in how the system held, not because Trump stopped, but because state officials chose law over loyalty.